He studies the damage patterns. He learns what keeps planes flying and what brings them crashing down. When the war ends in 1918, the German economy lies in ruins. The Treaty of Versailles has crippled the nation. Hyperinflation destroys savings. Unemployment soars. The aviation industry is essentially banned. Germany is forbidden from developing military aircraft. For a young man who dreams of designing planes, staying in Germany means waiting for a future that might never come. So in 1925, Edgar Schmued does what millions of Germans do during that desperate decade. He leaves. His older and younger brothers have already immigrated to Brazil, where they work as dentists in the German community of São Paulo. Edgar follows them, carrying his dreams across the Atlantic to a new continent. He's 25 years old. He has no formal degree. He has no reputation. He has nothing but his notebooks full of designs and a burning determination to build aircraft. In Brazil, his mechanical skills earn him a position with the General Aviation Company, the air branch of General Motors Corporation. It's not aircraft design, but it's a foot in the door. He works hard. He impresses his superiors. He demonstrates again and again that his self-taught knowledge is equal to or better than many university-educated engineers. In 1931, his excellent work earns him something extraordinarily rare: a visa to the United States. Immigration rules are brutally strict during the Great Depression. Very few people are admitted from his quota that year. Edgar Schmued is among them. He arrives in America with almost nothing except his skills and his dreams. He goes straight to work for the Fokker Aircraft Corporation of America, a General Motors subsidiary based in New Jersey. For the first time in his life, Edgar is actually designing aircraft. He's no longer just maintaining them or dreaming about them. He's creating them. His colleagues quickly discover that this quiet German immigrant has an almost supernatural ability to visualize complex aerodynamic problems. In 1935, General Motors reorganizes its aviation holdings into a new company called North American Aviation. The headquarters moves from Maryland to Los Angeles, California. Edgar's wife Louisa is reluctant to relocate across the country, so Edgar briefly joins another company, Belanca, in New York. But the pull of North American is too strong. While traveling to California to rejoin North American, tragedy strikes on Route 60. The Schmued's car is involved in a devastating head-on collision. Louisa is killed. Edgar is seriously injured. He lies in a hospital bed, his wife dead, his body broken, his dreams seemingly shattered. Most men would have given up. Most men would have returned to whatever safety they could find. Edgar Schmued is not most men. After recovering from his injuries, he goes to work for North American's president, a charismatic Texan named James H. Kindleberger, known to everyone as Dutch. Kindleberger hires Schmued in early 1936 as a preliminary design engineer. He quickly recognizes that he's found something special in this quiet, intense German immigrant. Schmued is different. He doesn't just solve problems. He sees solutions that others can't imagine. Over the next few years, Schmued contributes to several projects. He designs the front turret for the XB-21 bomber. He creates the NA-50, a single-engine fighter sold to Peru. He works on the NA-62, which becomes the famous B-25 Mitchell bomber. With each project, his reputation grows. But deep inside, Edgar Schmued is waiting. He's waiting for the question that will change everything. That question comes in early 1940. Europe is on fire. Hitler's armies have conquered Poland. The Wehrmacht is preparing to sweep through France. Britain stands alone, desperately short of aircraft. The Royal Air Force is burning through Spitfires and Hurricanes faster than factories can build them. They need more planes. They need them now. The British Purchasing Commission comes to America, checkbook in hand. They approach Curtiss-Wright, whose P-40 Tomahawk is one of the few American fighters that meets European standards. But the Curtiss factory is already running at full capacity. So the British turn to North American Aviation. Would they build P-40s under license? Dutch Kindleberger walks into Edgar Schmued's office with the proposal. He looks at his chief designer and asks a simple question. Ed, do we want to build P-40s here? Schmued has been waiting years for this moment. His answer comes without hesitation. Well, Dutch, don't let us build an obsolete airplane. Let us build a new one. We can design and build a better one. It's an audacious claim. North American has never built a single-seat fighter. The P-40 is a proven design already in production. Schmued is proposing to start from scratch while Britain is fighting for its survival. But Kindleberger trusts his designer. He goes back to the British with an extraordinary counteroffer. North American will design and build a completely new fighter. It will be faster than the P-40. It will carry more fuel. It will be easier to manufacture. And the prototype will be ready in 120 days. The British are skeptical but desperate. They agree. The contract is signed in late May 1940. The clock starts ticking. What happens next is one of the most remarkable feats in aviation history. Edgar doesn't sleep. He works 18-hour days, 7 days a week. His team of engineers follows his lead. They're not just designing an airplane. They're racing against time itself. The pressure is immense. Every day that passes is another day that Britain fights alone. Every week of delay means more Spitfires shot down, more pilots killed, more cities bombed. Schmued makes several bold decisions that seem crazy at the time. First, he chooses to use a revolutionary new wing design. The National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics has developed something called a laminar flow airfoil. The theory is that by carefully shaping the wing, you could delay the transition from smooth laminar airflow to turbulent airflow. This would dramatically reduce drag and increase speed and range. No production aircraft has ever used a laminar flow wing. The mathematics are still being refined. The manufacturing tolerances are incredibly demanding. A tiny imperfection in the wing surface could destroy the laminar flow effect entirely. Most engineers would consider it too risky. Schmued considers it essential. Second, he designs the fuselage using a revolutionary technique called conic lofting. The body of the aircraft is mathematically calculated using conic sections, resulting in surfaces so smooth that they seem to flow like water. Every rivet is flush with the surface. Every panel fits perfectly against its neighbor. The result is an airframe with almost no parasitic drag. Third, Schmued positions the radiator in a unique location. Instead of mounting it in the nose or under the wings like most fighters, he places it behind the cockpit in a carefully designed duct. This gives the aircraft a distinctive belly scoop. But it also does something remarkable. As cooling air passes through the radiator, it's heated and expanded. When it exits the duct, it provides a small amount of thrust. The plane's cooling system actually makes it faster. The British have asked for a prototype in 120 days. North American delivers in 102. On September 9, 1940, the prototype NA-73X rolls out of the factory. It has no engine yet. Allison, the engine manufacturer, is running behind schedule. But the airframe is complete. 102 days from contract signing to a finished prototype. It's unprecedented. When the Allison V-1710 engine finally arrives, test pilot Vance Breeze takes the prototype into the sky on October 26, 1940. The flight lasts just 5 minutes. But those 5 minutes prove that Schmued's gamble has paid off. The aircraft handles beautifully. It's fast. It's stable. It's everything he promised. The British name it the Mustang, a wild horse from the American West. It's perfect. There's a remarkable story about the prototype. When asked in 1981, at the 40th anniversary celebration of the Mustang's first flight, whether the airplane was really designed and built in 100 days, Schmued gave a revealing answer. The Mustang prototype was indeed built in 100 days, he said, but I had been designing it for 5 years. This is the truth behind the legend. Schmued had been sketching fighter designs in his spare time for years. He'd been thinking about optimal wing shapes, radiator placements, fuselage profiles. When the opportunity finally came, he was ready. Those 102 days weren't spent figuring out what to build. They were spent building what he'd already figured out. But here's where the story takes a painful twist. The early Mustang has a fatal flaw. Not in its design, but in its engine. The Allison V-1710 is a magnificent piece of American engineering, but it lacks a crucial feature. It has only a single-stage supercharger. At low altitudes, where the air is thick and dense, the Mustang is spectacular. It's faster than any British or German fighter. But above 15,000 feet, where the real air battles are being fought, the engine begins to choke. The thin air starves it of oxygen. Power falls away. The Mustang becomes sluggish, vulnerable, outclassed. The United States Army Air Corps initially rejects the Mustang. They see it as an inferior aircraft, useful only for ground attack and reconnaissance. While Schmued's creation is sent to secondary roles, the Luftwaffe is slaughtering American bombers over Germany. In October 1943, on a single mission to Schweinfurt, 60 B-17 flying fortresses are shot down. Over 600 young Americans killed or captured in a single afternoon. The bomber generals promised that their aircraft could defend themselves. They were wrong. The problem is range. American fighters like the P-47 Thunderbolt are excellent aircraft, but they simply can't fly far enough. They can escort the bombers partway into Germany, but then they have to turn back. The moment the fighters leave, the German interceptors attack. They wait just outside the fighter escort range like wolves stalking a wounded deer. The bombers are being massacred. The 8th Air Force is bleeding. Young men are dying by the hundreds every week. The strategic bombing campaign, which was supposed to bring Germany to its knees, is on the verge of collapse. Something has to change. And that something is waiting in a British test hangar. In April 1942, a British test pilot named Ronald Harker flies a Mustang at the Royal Air Force's Air Fighting Development Unit. He's impressed by its speed and range at low altitude, but he recognizes the same problem everyone else has. Above 15,000 feet, the aircraft simply can't compete with German fighters. However, Harker has an idea that will change everything. What if you put a Rolls-Royce Merlin engine in the Mustang? The Merlin is the engine that powers the Spitfire. It has a 2-stage, 2-speed supercharger that maintains power at high altitudes. If you could marry the Mustang's superb airframe to the Merlin's high-altitude performance, you might have something extraordinary. Harker writes a memo to his superiors. The memo goes up the chain of command. Engineers at Rolls-Royce run the calculations. The numbers are staggering. A Merlin-powered Mustang might be able to reach 440 miles per hour at 30,000 feet. That would make it the fastest fighter in the world. In the summer of 1942, the British begin converting several Mustangs to Merlin engines. They call them Mustang XS. On October 13, 1942, the first Merlin Mustang takes to the air. The results exceed everyone's expectations. The aircraft is nearly 100 miles per hour faster at high altitude than the Allison-powered version. It can climb almost twice as fast. It can fight where the real air war is being decided. Meanwhile, back in California, Edgar Schmued and his team are working on their own Merlin conversion. They receive British Merlin engines and install them in test aircraft. The American version, designated XP-51B, flies on November 30, 1942. Test pilot Bob Chilton reaches 441 miles per hour at nearly 30,000 feet. The engineers know they have something special. Here's where history turns on a single decision. The United States Army Air Forces, which ignored the Mustang for years, suddenly becomes very interested. They order the new Merlin-powered Mustang into mass production. The Packard Motor Company begins building Merlins under license in Detroit. North American converts their entire Inglewood, California factory to Mustang production. A second factory opens in Dallas, Texas. The scale of production is staggering. By 1945, North American is producing Mustangs at a rate that would have seemed impossible just a few years earlier. The Inglewood plant alone employs tens of thousands of workers, many of them women who entered the workforce to support the war effort. But Edgar Schmued isn't done innovating. He adds an 85-gallon fuel tank behind the pilot's seat. He designs wing fittings that can carry two 108-gallon drop tanks. With these modifications, the Mustang can fly over 700 miles from its base, fight, and return. It's the first single-engine fighter in history that can escort bombers all the way to Berlin and back. The first Merlin Mustangs arrive in England in late 1943. The first long-range escort mission to Germany comes in December. By early 1944, the slaughter has reversed. The Mustangs meet the Luftwaffe over Germany and begin systematically destroying it. In February 1944, the Allies launch Operation Argument, which becomes known as Big Week. For 7 days, over 1,000 bombers attack German aircraft factories. But the real battle is in the sky. The Mustangs, freed from close escort duties, hunt German fighters wherever they can find them. They attack aircraft on the ground. They ambush them during takeoff and landing. They pursue them relentlessly across the Reich. The Luftwaffe is bleeding to death. Not because they lack aircraft. German factories actually increase production throughout 1944. They're dying because they can't replace their pilots. The Mustangs are killing experienced aviators faster than Germany can train new ones. Flight school hours are cut. Half-trained pilots are thrown into combat. They die in droves. On March 4, 1944, P-51 Mustangs escort bombers all the way to Berlin for the first time. Single-engine fighters over the German capital. It's unprecedented. It's devastating. When Hermann Göring, the commander of the Luftwaffe, learns that American fighters are appearing over Berlin, he refuses to believe the reports at first. He's been assured by his technical staff that no single-engine fighter could have such range. When he finally accepts the truth, he recognizes that Germany has lost control of the air war. Consider the irony for a moment. The aircraft that destroys the Luftwaffe is designed by a German. Not just any German, but a man who served in the Austro-Hungarian military during World War I. A man who learned his craft in workshops near the French border. A man who was driven from his homeland by the economic devastation of the previous war. And now his creation is systematically annihilating the air force of the nation that drove him away. The numbers tell the story. Before the Mustang escorts arrive, bomber loss rates sometimes exceed 9% per mission. Afterwards, losses drop to less than 1%. Crews who faced near-certain death now have a reasonable chance of completing their 25 missions and going home. The difference is Edgar Schmued's airplane. By the end of 1944, 14 of the 15 fighter groups in the 8th Air Force fly Mustangs. The P-51 has become the primary American fighter in Europe. Pilots love it. They call it the Cadillac of the sky. The bombers love it even more. They call the Mustangs their little friends. World War II ends in 1945, but Edgar Schmued isn't finished designing aircraft. He applies the same innovative thinking to the jet age. He leads the design of the F-82 Twin Mustang, a long-range escort fighter that joins two Mustang fuselages together. He's the chief designer of the F-86 Sabre, which dominates the skies over Korea and becomes America's first swept-wing jet fighter. Along with chief engineer Raymond Rice, he initiates the design studies for what becomes the F-100 Super Sabre, the first fighter capable of sustained supersonic flight in level conditions. Though he leaves North American before that aircraft's first flight, after 22 years at North American, Schmued moves to Northrop Corporation. There he leads the team that creates the F-5 Tiger, a lightweight supersonic fighter that emphasizes simplicity, safety, and low cost. The F-5 is so successful that it remains in service with more than 20 nations for over 50 years. He also develops the T-38 Talon, which becomes the primary advanced trainer for the United States Air Force and is still flying today. Throughout his career, Schmued maintains the same principles he learned in that small engine factory. Keep it simple. Make it reliable. Design for manufacturing. Don't waste a single ounce of weight or a single dollar of cost. Any damned fool can criticize, he once said, but it takes a genius to design it in the first place. Edgar Schmued retires from Northrop in 1957, but he never truly stops working. He consults for the Department of Defense. He advises allied governments. He even helps the film industry with aviation-related movies. He's still actively working just before his death from a heart condition on June 1, 1985. He's 85 years old. What makes Schmued's story so remarkable isn't just what he accomplished, but how he accomplished it. He had no university degree. He had no wealthy family. He had no connections in the aviation industry. He taught himself engineering from books. He learned about aircraft by maintaining them as a mechanic. He arrived in America as a penniless immigrant during the depths of the Great Depression. And yet, this self-taught German created some of the most important aircraft in history. The P-51 Mustang alone is considered by many experts to be the finest propeller-driven fighter ever built. Over 15,000 were produced during the war. They destroyed nearly 5,000 enemy aircraft. They changed the course of the air war over Europe. They saved countless thousands of Allied lives. Think about what would have happened if Edgar had stayed in Germany. If he had not immigrated to Brazil, then to America. If Dutch Kindleberger had not asked him that simple question in 1940. The Mustang would never have existed. The bombers would have continued to be slaughtered over Germany. The Luftwaffe might have remained a potent force. The war might have ended differently. But that's not what happened. Instead, a boy who watched his first airplane at age 8, who taught himself engineering because he couldn't afford university, who fled a shattered economy and rebuilt his life across 2 continents, created the weapon that broke the Luftwaffe. The plane that a German designed destroyed the German Air Force. History sometimes has a cruel sense of irony. Today, if you visit aviation museums around the world, you can stand next to a P-51 Mustang. You can see the carefully contoured wing that pushed the boundaries of aerodynamic theory. You can see the distinctive belly scoop that turned cooling into thrust. You can see the bubble canopy that gave pilots unmatched visibility. More than 150 Mustangs remain airworthy today, nearly 80 years after production ended. They still fly at air shows. They still race at Reno. They still inspire new generations of aviation enthusiasts. They're living monuments to a quiet German immigrant who refused to let circumstances define his destiny. Edgar Schmued didn't just design an airplane. He designed a legend. He proved that genius has no nationality, that determination can overcome any obstacle, that one person with the right skills and the right opportunity can change the course of history. He did it with no formal education. He did it after personal tragedy. He did it in 102 days, working 18-hour shifts, driven by a vision that others said was impossible. The next time you see a Mustang flying at an air show, remember the man who created it. Remember the 8-year-old boy watching his first airplane. Remember the mechanic who taught himself aerodynamics. Remember the immigrant who crossed 2 oceans to follow his dreams. Remember Edgar Schmued, the German who built the plane that crushed the Luftwaffe. His story reminds us that greatness doesn't care where you were born or what degrees you hold. Greatness cares only about what you can create when you refuse